Me of a column that you wrote when Andy Pettitte announced that he was coming back. And, you know, you kind of tied it into the core four almost being kind of like a brotherhood. And it really, it made me think. I wanted to ask you a question because I thought it was interesting in that article that even Mo and Jeter don't quite agree. I wanted to ask you what you think. I mean, there probably never will be anything like that core four where they've, you know, won championships and played together for 16, 17 years. I mean, it's going to be almost unheard of because first you have to be lucky to have the longevity and then with all the free agency to stay on the same team and then to have the talent to, you know, to go on that long. But so do you think when Jeter and Mo are no longer on the team, you know, could it be led by, you know, by A-Rod and Teixeira and CC, or do you agree with Mo, who thinks that you know it's got to be, you know, the blue blood? You got to come up through the organization, which then would leave it to Cano and maybe, you know, Nova and guys of that ilk to carry on the tradition.
Yeah, I think it's a question that's still up in the air.
Yeah.
I think Cano obviously has an opportunity to be one of the you know, the core guys. I don't think he'll be going anywhere. Yeah. The Yankees will always have more money to retain their free agents if they want to. But I also think I do agree with Jeter that, you know, we saw in the 90s that guys who were not part of the Yankee organization, you know, David Cohn, Paul O'Neill, Tino Martinez.
Right. If you come in, you have a job to do, and if you do it, and then you're a true Yankee. You're really performing up to your ability.
It really speaks more to the makeup of an individual. Yeah, I think that is possible. I think CC, depending on how long, you know, he remains effective as a pitcher, he can be part of that as well because his personality is such. Right. I mean, he's loved in that clubhouse. Right. He's a natural leader.
That's why I don't know about A-Rod because, you know, he's just kind of a lightning rod. He's controversial.
He carries too much baggage around to ever be considered. And I think, you know, as he continues to presumably deteriorate, at the same time that he's carrying that huge contract, there's going to be a sort of natural bred resentment from the organization that, look what we got ourselves into.
Contract, right.
So I would think it would be difficult for A-Rod to be part of that.
It'd be interesting to see how it evolves.
It's certainly
when the core four is gone.
You're right. And speaking of the core four, we're going to ask Vinny if he will go over to. I'm going a little bit out of order, so I apologize. But we're going to go over to G11, and you know, the new thing now is, I mean, you probably started off, you know, with a typewriter where you were typing with one finger and doing one of these kind of things. Now, you know, we see you on with Imus and we hear you on the radio and all this other stuff, but there's something else out there. It's Twitter and it's, you know, social networking going directly to people. And I've only joined the party very late. And last month I kind of started playing around with it and my passions with the Yankees came out. And I threw a question out there and I got an enormous response from it. And I just want to preface it by saying that someone on Twitter contacted me and they asked me to be on their show, and they were so gracious to me. They said, could you be on for 20 minutes? I was on for like an hour and a half just rambling about the Yankees, and they were so nice. And the name of the show is The Power Play Show, and it's at Power Play Show. It's a podcast radio show. You could find it on Twitter. And the gentleman that contacted me was James Acevedo, and then there was also Howard and Anthony on the show. And I asked them this question, and I'm going to pose it to you, and you could see the graphic that we have up here. The question's been asked, Harvey, probably a number of times, but never exactly like this. What kind of struck me was when you think of the old-time Yankees, it covered 5 decades, the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And when you think of old-time Yankee Mount Rushmore, most people, most Yankee fans, and it's kind of hard to argue, they go with Ruth, Gehrig, DiMaggio, and Mantle, and that takes you from the 20s through the 60s. Well, interestingly enough, since Steinbrenner bought the team, he bought them in '73. There's some kind of you know, interesting kind of parallel there where the old stadium was built in '23 and they won the championship the first year. He bought the team in '73. Now we're in our 5th decade, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010. Here's the question, since we're in the 5th decade and it kind of has some kind of symmetry there. If you had to put only four faces of the Steinbrenner era, from the 70s till now, I hate to put you on the spot, and I'm just throwing this as a curveball to you, but I think you can handle it. If you had to pick only 4 players from the Steinbrenner era, who would you pick?
Well, obviously, Jeter and Rivera are automatics. I mean, these guys, the test of time and the level of excellence that's been ongoing. I would add Thurman Munson to that, because he was the anchor. He may not have been the straw, but he was certainly the anchor of those teams in the 70s. And those teams take on special significance because they revived the Yankees from a dormant era. So I would put Munson on. And then I think, you know, you can have a discussion between Bernie Williams,
Mattingly.
you know, Don Mattingly. Some people might throw Reggie on because, you know, but
The guy I think that doesn't get enough kudos, Georgie Posada. I'm a Posada guy.
Posada, you know, but then it makes it top-heavy to the 90s
Current.
teams,
Yeah, I
the
see
current,
your
and I would say, you know, and you know what? I have to say, having worked with Ron Guidry, that I might even
Put him in the mix.
go with Ron over Mattingly, because what he did in 1978, and the excellence that span of years where he was really at the top of his game,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to beat that for a starting pitcher. And the 25-3, you know, the playoff game in Boston, you know, the kind of team-oriented guy that he was, you know, and now we see him still a welcome figure, still doing what he does for Yogi. I think we have to also consider what happens off the field. And so I'm going to go with my guy, Ron Guidry.
All right. You know what, Anthony, I'm going to ask you to weigh in a second, but very interesting, and it's kind of hard to argue, because what Harvey's doing is he's going with, because it's Mount Rushmore, and it's not only, as he said, it's not only what they do on the field, but off the field. And also what I'm noticing is how well-rounded they are. Jeter, Mariano, both, when you think of, let's say, Ron Guidry, as you mentioned, not only the year that he had, 25-3, whatever, you know it better than I do, but the Gold Gloves that he won through the years, and Munson as tough as nails. And as you said, there's 2 teams here that have taken the Yankee franchise when we thought it was kind of on a downturn, that maybe it might not reverse itself. Late 70s
Turned it around.
and in 90s. Anthony, what do you say? If you had to pick 4, it's one of those kind of questions. There is no right or wrong.
I love Posada because I think he belongs in with that group with Mo and Jeet. And my other one would be Reggie. I just thought he was just so charismatic, and that did a lot to turn around the image of the franchise.